I'm a PhD student at the University of Chicago, and I'm concerned at the unilateral imposition of DEI, and that it will make it difficult to conduct science.
No, it'll make it impossible.
How to beat it. He wants to know how to beat that.
Marshal your arguments. You're a PhD student. You're supposed to be learning how to pursue the truth. You're supposed to be, that's the goal, right? You're developing expertise in the pursuit of truth. You can't be a scientist without that expertise. It's partly why I believe that science itself is nested inside a broader ethic. So I talked to Richard Dawkins a while back, and one of the things that struck me of Dawkins is perhaps the world's most famous atheist, and I thought, he's not such an atheist. He believes that the truth will set us free. And if you're a scientist and you don't believe that, you're not a scientist. And so that's a very interesting thing to realize, you know, and I think the preconditions for science is a fragile enterprise, and it's only been really working for about 400 years. There's a set of very stringent preconditions that make that enterprise possible, and one of them is acceptance of the notion that it's right and meet to be dedicated to the pursuit of the truth. And that idea took a very long time to develop to the point where it could express itself in the techniques and practices of science. If you're a high-level student at a university, and the University of Chicago is one of the least corrupted educational institutions, higher educational institutions, which is not saying much, by the way. And don't say things you don't believe to be true. Don't write them. Don't participate. I see my colleagues at the universities, the scientists, the STEM types now in Canada, and it's increasingly the case in the US, they have to write a diversity, inclusivity, and equity statement, and if they don't get it right, whatever that means, their research isn't considered for funding. And you know, in California, almost 80% of applicants to entry-level research positions in the UC system, which was once a great educational system, one of the great educational systems of the world, 80% of those applicants are rejected on the grounds of the insufficiency of their diversity, inclusivity, and equity statements. And that's not a problem. That's a catastrophe, if you think that there's any utility to the scientific pursuit as such. You fight it the same way you fight lies, by not lying. My colleagues tell me, well, you know, we have to write these diversity statements, but we sort of, you know, we beat around the bush and we tell them what they want to hear. And you think you can do that without convincing yourself? You think your words have more impact on other people? You think your words have more impact on other people than they have on you? Like, who do you think you are? You think you can lie and you can stop yourself from believing your own lies? God, that's like arrogance squared. You know, students used to, and still write me, I need to tell the professor what he wants to hear in order to pass the class. It's like, do that your whole education and see what happens. You'll come out demoralized, you'll come out inarticulate, you'll come out cynical, you'll come out converted, and maybe you say, well, I can't say anything now, I'll wait till I hit the next stage of my career when I'm secure, and then you get there and you find out you're not secure then. And then you think it'll be the next stage, you'll be secure, and then you'll be brave, and then you hit that, and you find out you're not secure then, and eventually you find out, like when you're 80, that you were never secure, no matter what you did, and that the precondition for courage is not security. And if you think the precondition for courage is security, you have no idea what courage is, because courage isn't the willingness to stand for the truth when you're secure. That's not courage. Courage is willingness to stand for the truth when you're not secure. And you might as well practice that right now. You know, I have colleagues, clinical psychologists, professors who subjected themselves to lectures about implicit racism from like half-wit, barely educated ideologues with 1% of their clinical experience and intelligence telling them how to conduct themselves psychologically, and they'll submit themselves to it. It's like, you submit to what you submit to. So, be careful what you submit to. And that's for all of you. You know, your country, you're doing a pretty good job of laying out an alternative pathway around these corrosive ideas. I think maybe better than any other country in the world. And that's something. But it's a hell of a battle. And it's accelerating in terms of its rapidity. And the reason for that is that, well, there's a couple of reasons, but one is that all communication is accelerating. And so these ideas spread way faster than they once did. And they're abstracted up in a way they never have been before as well. And so it's easier for people to fall prey to them. Before, maybe, when things were slower and our communication was more one-to-one rather than abstract, a false claim could be belied in some sense by your immediate experience. But now everything's virtualized and abstract, and so the proof that the theory is wrong, because the real world reveals it's wrong, is harder to come by because you spend so much time not in the real world, in this abstracted world. In any case, for PhD students, don't practice what you don't want to become, for sure.
Would you ever consider doing a children's version of 12 Rules and Beyond Order, something that could be used at home by parents or in a classroom by a teacher?
It's doubtful. It's not that it wouldn't. I don't know how to conceptualize that project. So, and it hasn't been something that's come to mind in some real sense. So probably no.